President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, received the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, Hua Chunying, with the aim of strengthening bilateral relations. In Palestine, the United Nations Children's Fund warned that more than half of the schools in the Gaza Strip have been attacked by Israeli occupation forces since the beginning of the genocide. Japanese Prime Minister Kishida announced that he will not seek re-election as leader of the Liberal Democratic Party. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Tuesday, the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, received the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, Hua Chunying, with the aim of strengthening bilateral relations. During the meeting, issues of cooperation, education, poverty, and the free trade agreement being negotiated by both countries were discussed. The Honduran president assured that after a year of diplomatic relations, the exchange with China has been fruitful for both nations, highlighting that the last early harvest agreement, signed in February, accelerated the process of negotiating a free trade agreement, allowing her country to export shrimp and other products free of tariffs. Let's remember that on March 2023, Honduras and China announced the establishment of diplomatic relations.
The government of the Republic and of President Castro is doing everything possible and taking all the necessary measures to ensure that this treaty benefits the Honduran people, that it benefits our farmers at all levels, the small, the medium, the large, the exporters, and this positive exchange with the People's Republic of China is the goal. After practically a year and a few months of relations, it has been an important step forward.
In Venezuela, the Vatican representative Apostolic Nuncio Monsignor Alberto Ortega Martin handed over the credential letters to the constitutional president Nicolas Maduro. In a historic act, both authorities shook hands as a symbol of peace and as a symbol of the recognition of the Holy See to the constitutional government of President Nicolas Maduro, and also as a proof of the historical relationship of mutual respect between the Vatican State and Venezuela. Venezuela continues to recover from the violence it suffered after the elections, which mainly targeted social leaders, security officials, public institutions, and social services, infrastructure, among others.
Commerce, transportation, and services functioning normally is the current face of Valencia, Venezuela's third largest city, in the central part of the country. But 2 weeks ago, an outbreak of violence shook the city. 15 days after the violent acts carried out by sectors of the extreme right that rejected the results of July 28 in Venezuela, here in Valencia the authorities and the organized people are reopening facilities that were attacked, such as this police module and a community pharmacy. This pharmacy is located in Santa Rosa Parish, a popular area and located on one of the main access roads to the city. It serves hundreds of people regardless of their political affiliation.
It's being reopened to the people, where we can get medicines at low cost and to benefit the entire people living near the pharmacy.
It was strong because fascism brought out the most vile in their flesh, the most fascist thing that could exist in a human being, that hatred that they rooted against our Venezuelan brothers. They went out to burn police modules, pharmacies that benefit such a vulnerable people as the Santa Rosa Parish. For instance, elderly people who find their cheap medicines.
Political and security authorities have denounced that the acts of violence in Valencia and in other cities of the country responded to a destabilization plan. From this monitoring room they attended and recorded the violent acts.
This was planned, this was organized, this was financed, and we stated with foundation, with evidence seized. Cell phones were seized from these subjects, phones that have registered WhatsApp groups. These WhatsApp groups, in a very high percentage, are made of phones with international lines from Chile, Peru, United States, and they receive instructions.
The great task now is to rebuild the social relations and trust that they tried to break within the communities.
We have guaranteed peace. The situation only arose on July 29 in view of the fact that these violent, fascist, terrorist groups were looking for a confrontation between the state security agencies and the people, a confrontation of people against people.
Normality consolidates in cities like Valencia, Caracas, and others shaken by fascist violence.
telesur, Valencia, Estado Carabobo, Venezuela.
In our news, in Bolivia, reports and cases of human trafficking have increased constantly over the last 3 years and have almost doubled. The main destination of this phenomenon is sexual exploitation, followed by labor exploitation. Correspondent Freddy Morales has the details.
Human trafficking begins with the disappearance of a person. If the absence is prolonged, the police label the report as human trafficking. On average, 1/3 of every 1,000 missing persons reports result in human trafficking.
In the first half of last year, we had 1,653 reports, of which 1,328 people were found. But we are still looking for 325 people. During the first half of this year, we have more than 1,807 reports, of which we have found 1,380 reports.
According to research, most of the people trafficked are children and adolescents, and preferably women. They are mainly recruited for the purpose of sexual exploitation.
It is always considered child sexual exploitation, which is known as child prostitution in some places. But this child sexual exploitation is just that. It is sexual exploitation. There are no children that involve consent, because it is a minor. There is no consent in this. And this is human trafficking, because there are benefits for third parties.
The second destination of victims of human trafficking is labor exploitation, but 14 destinations have been verified, ranging from organ trafficking to forced pregnancy, sex tourism, forced begging, servile marriage, and employment in criminal activities. In Bolivia, the cases detected are met with judicial condescension.
If we do not have a significant number of sentences, we are sending a message to criminal organizations and criminals that this crime is not being punished in the country, and the work done by the rest of the institutions for prevention, attention to victims, investigation, ends up being insufficient in the face of this reality, since this is a message which is very strong.
The permissiveness of the justice system, according to the authorities, may contribute to the fact that the phenomenon of human trafficking has almost doubled in just 3 years.
In 2021, the total in Bolivia was 589. In 2022, it was 724, and in 2023, it was 947. Therefore, there is an increase in the number of complaints in the processes that are currently underway for human trafficking, which has to do with social networks.
According to official statistics, 70% of trafficked persons in Bolivia are under 18 years of age and 76% are women. In more than 80% of the cases, the victims are recruited through social networks, and it has been revealed that a trafficker needs only 18 minutes to convince his victim to have a meeting.
Freddy Morales, telesur, Bolivia.
In Argentina, former President Christina Fernandez will testify in court for the assassination attempt against her perpetrated on September 1st, 2022. Fernandez will testify this Wednesday in the courts of Comodoro P in the continuation of the judicial process against the perpetrators of the attack. Her testimony comes almost 2 months after the beginning of the trial and after the statements of the 3 accused in the case, Fernando Sabac Montiel, Brenda Uliarte, and Nicolás Corrizo. Before the trial, the former president pointed to the hegemonic media and to the judicial negligence that chose to dismiss the clues that led to the masterminds and financiers of the attack. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at telesur English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Palestine demanded punishment for the Israeli authorities before the Security Council for dismissing all calls to stop the genocide in the Gaza Strip. On a session of the United Nations Security Council, the Palestinian representative Riyad Mansour denounced that the Tel Aviv regime points out that hunger is a legitimate war weapon while justifying its massacres against innocent civilians. Likewise, Mansour assured that the Zionist entity turns a blind eye to international declarations and resolutions. Several UN members such as Russia, Algeria and China condemned on Tuesday's session the attack perpetrated by Israel on the school in Gaza that claimed over 100 lives.
To those who continue to arm Israel, to those who still have the audacity to call in Israel, quote unquote, to investigate its own crimes, as if the actions of its soldiers do not reflect the actual policies of its military and political leaders. To those who dare to try and deter international courts from ensuring accountability instead of deterring the perpetrators of atrocities. Wake up! Wake up!
Meanwhile, in Palestine, at least 16 people were killed by Israeli bombardments perpetrated during the last hours in the center and north of Gaza. In an attack carried out before midnight on Tuesday at the Nusayr refugee camp claimed the lives of the entire Abu Naba family. 7 people, including the father, mother and 5 children, between the ages of 2 and 11, were killed during the bombing. On the other hand, at least 9 people were killed and several wounded after separate attacks by the Israeli army in the Maghazi refugee camp in the southern city of Han Yunis and in Beit Lahia, north of Gaza. According to the UN, nearly 500 million children face twice as many extreme heat days a year compared to their grandparents, which could have deadly consequences. UNICEF reports that 466 million children live in areas with at least twice as many hot days as they did 60 years ago. Children are more vulnerable to extreme heat, which can cause heat stress, malnutrition, and diseases such as malaria. By 2024, at least 80 million children will be out of school due to heat. The worst affected region is West and Central Africa, where 123 million children face temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius for a 30-year. UNICEF calls for action to mitigate climate change and protect children.
It means that 1 in 5 children are now living through twice as many days of extremely hot temperatures as their grandparents would have done 50, 60 years ago. And on that trajectory, it's getting worse and worse for those children. And it's not just in countries that you might think traditionally are hot countries. It's happening in every continent. We're seeing heat waves all over the world, in Northern Europe, in the United States, as well as in countries in Africa. And if you can imagine the type of temperatures we're talking about, that kind of heat is dangerous. It's dangerous for anyone, but especially for young children. So we're calling on governments everywhere to understand that and think long and hard about policies that really meet the needs of the most vulnerable groups, not just because they need to be protected now, but it is their future that we are handing to them. It's the legacy we leave behind for them that these climate plans now will set the course for in the future.
On Wednesday, the governor of the Russian province of Belgorod, Vyacheslav Gladkov, declared a regional emergency over Ukrainian attacks. The governor said the decision is aimed at implementing measures to provide greater citizen protection, highlighting the devastating impact that these aggressions have had on the local population. The governor indicated that in the last hours, Ukrainian drone attacks have been registered in 2 localities of the province, causing structural damage in the area. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at telesur English. There you'll be able to watch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Japanese Prime Minister PM Kishida announced on August 14th that he will not seek re-election as leader of the Liberal Democratic Party ending his nearly 3-year term in office. Kishida stressed the need for change within the Liberal Democratic Party, especially after his popularity plummeted due to a corruption scandal and price hikes that have hit Japanese households. His support has fallen below 20%, and the new LDP leader to be elected in September will automatically become the next prime minister. Kishida emphasized the importance of transparent elections and open debates to revitalize the party and pledged to support his successor.
In this presidential election, it is necessary to show the people that the LDP, Liberal Democratic Party, is changing. And the party is new LDP. For this, transparent and open elections and free and vigorous debate are important. The most obvious first step to show that the LDP will change is for me to step aside. I will not be running in the forthcoming presidential election.
In this context, Japanese citizens have shared their opinion on the matter.
I was surprised. I knew there were some issues, but I had no idea he was thinking of quitting, so it was surprising to me. I personally would like to see someone younger take charge. We have only seen very old politicians lead our country so far, so someone more youthful and efficient would be good.
His approval ratings have been fast declining, so I'm actually impressed he has made it this long. I personally think the negative sides of the LDP have been surfacing lately, so a change in power might be a good idea.
In New Zealand, methamphetamine was found in potentially dangerous amounts in candy given out by a charity organization, which has triggered an urgent rush to get them off the streets. On Monday, police opened a criminal investigation and are now trying to locate up to 400 people who may have been given candy tainted with very dangerous doses of methamphetamine. Although none of them are seriously ill, a child, a teenager, and a charity worker have been taken to the hospital after tasting the candy. Police speculate that traffickers or dealers may have packaged the drugs under the brand name Rinda to avoid detection, and that they were then donated to the Auckland City Mission Poverty Charity, which unknowingly distributed them through a food bank.
Tests confirmed immediately that the lollies contained, and this is very important, potentially lethal levels of methamphetamine. We also immediately contacted the New Zealand police, who very gratefully came on site, literally.
This is a block of methamphetamine that weighs just about 3 grams that was wrapped in a Rinda lolly. A common dose of methamphetamine is between 10 to 25 milligrams, so by our estimates that could be up to 300 doses in one lolly. This is potentially lethal for somebody who consumes the same amount.
In Cuba, the inauguration of an exhibition of graphic humor and cartoon card making to commemorate the 90th anniversary of the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, took place. The inauguration of the exhibition of graphic humor took place in the Cinco Palmas Hall of the Fidel Castro Cruz Center, where 18 caricatures of Palante, Cuba's graphic humor newspaper, were presented. There is also an exhibition of 8 caricatures of the students of the graphic humor workshop given at the center to children between 9 and 11 years old. Should be noted that the inauguration of the graphic humor workshop is part of the multiple activities that took place on August 13th on the occasion of Fidel Castro's 98th birthday.
I made this drawing to show that even if we are in the dark, Fidel will always be the light that will guide us. The fact of presenting Cuba is that when you present Cuba inevitably, the revolution is also something inherent to the country. So our volunteers were also a way for them to get to know those aspects of the history of the country that we not know, and the center is also a good space to learn the message of Fidel and the message of Cuba and its people and its revolution as well.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.